The ancient Egyptian people were grouped in a hierarchical system, with the pharaoh at the top and farmers and slaves at the bottom. Egyptian social classes had some porous borders, but they were largely fixed. Clearly, the groups of people nearest the top of society were the richest and most powerful. The pharaoh was believed to be a god on earth and had the most power. He or she was responsible for making laws and keeping order, ensuring that Egypt was not attacked or invaded by enemies, and was also responsible for keeping the gods happy so that the Nile flooded and there was a good harvest. The vizier was the pharaoh's chief advisor and was sometimes also the high priest. He was responsible for overseeing administration, and all official documents had to have his seal of approval. He was also responsible for the supply of food, settling disputes between nobles, and the running and protection of Pharaoh's household. Nobles ruled the region of Egypt, and these were called nomes. They were responsible for making local laws and keeping order in their region. Priests were responsible for keeping the gods happy. They did not preach to people, but spent their time performing rituals and ceremonies to the god of their temple. Scribes were the only people who could read and write, and were responsible for keeping records. The ancient Egyptians recorded things such as how much food was produced at harvest time, and how many soldiers were in the army, numbers of workers, and the number of gifts given to the gods. Soldiers were responsible for the defense of the country. Many second sons, including those of the pharaoh, often chose to join the army. Soldiers were allowed to share riches captured from enemies and were also rewarded with land for their service to the country. Craftsmen were skilled workers such as pottery makers, leather workers, sculptors, painters, weavers, jewellery makers, shoemakers, and tailors. Groups of craftsmen often worked together in workshops. Farmers worked the land of the pharaoh and nobles and were given housing, food, and clothes in return. Some farmers rented land from nobles and had to pay a percentage of their crop as their rent. There were no slave markets or auctions in ancient Egypt. Slaves were usually prisoners captured in war. Slaves could be found in the household of the pharaoh and nobles, working in mines and quarries, and also in temples.